How are you? The Enzo DiCenzo podcast, and today we're going to be talking about budgetary planning. So we're going to do the PowerPoints for that today. So let's get to that. Okay. Now we did not finish the, because I have a couple entries here still. We didn't work on the comprehensive problem. We didn't work on the appendix for the last chapter. We're going to do that. But I just wanted to jump into the budgetary planning topic, and then we'll go back in time a bit to the other ones. And we'll start also before the spring break because I'm looking at the calendar here. We have 4 weeks before spring break. So, we'll do a lot of good stuff in between now and then. Okay. But again, when I saw this chapter, I couldn't resist talking about this topic because this is so important to what I do. This kind of thinking, and we could rename the last two chapters the Warren Buffett chapters because this is how Warren Buffett looks at stocks and looks at companies and examines companies and makes makes predictions himself about what he thinks the earnings are going to be. So anyway, the budgetary planning chapter indicates the benefits of budgeting, the essentials of effective budgeting, uh, what a master budget is, budgeted income statements, the sections of a cash budget, and the applicability of budgeting in non-manufacturing companies. Because the simplest thing is, electronics company, they're making televisions or making computers or something like that. That's the simplest example we can have. The basics, budgeting and accounting, the benefits, the essentials of effective budgeting, the length of the budget period, budgeting process, budgeting and human behavior, budgeting and long-range planning, operating budget, sales, production, direct materials, direct labor, manufacturing overhead, selling and administrative expenses, the budgeted income statement, merchandise or service nonprofit for budgeting in non-manufacturing companies, and then the financial budgets. This is it's funny. It seems like the shortest little section, but it's the most important. So a budget's a formal written statement of management's plans for the specified future time period expressed in financial terms, a primary way to communicate the agreed upon objectives to all parts of the company. It promotes efficiency. It's a control device. It's important. It's an important basis for performance evaluation once adopted. Historical accounting data on revenues, costs, expenses helps formulate the future budget. Municipalities deal with this a lot. And believe me, the semiconductor industry and how many microprocessors Intel thinks that they're going to sell, that's also important too. But the local governments, this is very important because they get a fixed amount of money and they need to spend it because the state won't. If they don't, if municipalities like Belleville, New Jersey, or something, they don't spend everything that they're granted by the state, then the state cuts back, saying, well, they don't need it. And it redistributes it to Newark or some other big city. Accounts responsible for presenting the management's budget goals in financial terms. The budget and its administration are however entirely management's responsibility, folks. And I've said to you guys before, what I like about what I do is that everybody who's involved in our work group, we can very simply identify what that person is doing there, why that person's there. There's no extra in terms of chasing people around in this and that, right? It's just everybody's got a purpose to be there, and we work like that. I wish that for all of you. The guys get to work like that. The benefits of budgeting. Everybody has to look ahead as to what the year ahead is going to look like. I mean, there's nothing worse than planning for the day, and that's it, right? Obviously, if there's snow, you need snow plows, rock salt. I'm sure if you drive around, there's some malls right in Western Essex County, up in West Orange, where they get a lot of snow because it's a higher elevation, and you can see the rock salts piled up in the corners of the parking lot, ready to go, ready to be used. Provide definite objectives for evaluating performance. There's early warning system for potential problems and coordination of activities within the business. Okay, that's the benefits of budgeting. More of this stuff, it results in greater management awareness of Now, certainly J.P. Morgan and places like that. It's General Electric, these big companies. The planning of a complicated firm is a key thing, because then it gets away from you. So motivates personnel throughout the organization to be planned objectives. Of the budget isn't or a budget is an aid to management, not a substitute for management. Okay, we like that. I like that one. Just because it's written down doesn't mean that it's being realized or materialized. Which of the following is not a benefit? I was going to go to C, and I was right. Enables disciplinary action to be taken at every level. I mean, that's not what a budget's for. Coordination of activities is facilitated. Early warning system is provided for potential problems, and management can plan ahead. Okay, that's those A, B, and D are the benefits of budgeting. The essentials of effective budgeting depends on a sound organizational structure with authority and responsibility for all phases of operations is clearly defined, based on research and analysis, realistic goals, and accepted by all levels of management. So, again, if you have people who are not on board, there's no worse thing than that. The length of the budget period, prepared for any period of time, usually a year. Monthly and quarterly budgets can be or supplements. Different budgets may cover different time periods. Long enough to provide an attainable goal and minimize seasonal or cyclical fluctuations. Short enough for reliable estimates and continuous. Now look, continuous 12-month budgeting means you don't just say, okay, we'll make a budget for January to December, and then we'll revisit this, next Christmas. That's generally not the smartest way to go. So when you get to February, March, April, and May, you're projecting, you're tacking on the next month. So you're still always a year out, even if it's September or July or something like that. The base budget goals on past performance. Collect data from organizational units, begin several months before the end of the current year, develop budgets within the framework of a sales forecast, show potential industry sales, and shows companies' expected share. So again, this is a very innocent looking slide, right? This is very innocent looking, but you figuring out what you're going to sell and what your piece of a certain market is, those are key, Warren Buffett, value line, those are key points to think about, okay, when you're in that, in those kinds of positions. Sales forecasting, the general economic activity. We follow what the central bank is saying, employment numbers. And I saw a headline come across my screen today saying the jobs numbers are a surefire way to prevent any lessening of any reduction in interest rates, because if we continue to add people in the economy, there's still that danger of inflation, and we still haven't returned inflation to our target goals, which is, with the U.S. Central Bank is generally about 2% or so. Industry trends, market research studies. Obviously, cannabis is a huge opportunity right now for the people with the know-how and the capital to build these agricultural companies and sell that stuff out in the world. Anticipated advertising and promotion, market share, price changes, technological developments, how much technology plays in your field. This is, there's always going to be a study by some group that sounds like a law firm, right? Willard and Shulman sound like a law firm. And it says they determined that fewer than 14% of businesses with less than 500 employees prepare an annual budget or have written business plans. And 6 out of 10 of these businesses have no plans on paper at all. And for the small businesses, the assumption is as long as I sell as much as I can and keep the employees paid, I'm doing okay. Well, I'm sure nothing beats performance, but again, having something quantified is never bad. A few small business owners even say that there's no need for budgeting and planning. Most small business owners, though, say that they understand the budgeting and planning are critical for survival and growth, but that given the long hours they're already working to address the day-to-day operations of the business, they also say they're just too busy to plan for the future. Well, you got to designate that, okay? You got to designate that in terms of what you're doing. Now, this is always the person with the most knowledge of what's going on that's going to sit there and make this, paint this picture of what the business looks like. Participative budgets, if now where I work is it's a rather level organ. There aren't really too many levels, and there's the top people, us, and then maybe the people that we deal with. So it's not 5 or 6 or 7 levels or a dozen levels like these big corporate entities like an IBM or something like that. But a budget can inspire, performance or it can discourage effort and people doing just enough. That terrible trap, that terrible career trap, which I run across too many people who are, I'm doing just enough to keep, to keep this going, and that's about it, as opposed to people being creative and developing and thinking about the future and what the future is going to look like. How budgets are developed and administered, and again, this invitation for management to participate. I mean, how can management not participate in developing a plan that they're, again, especially the local management, that they're intimately involved in. Okay, bottom to top is called participative budgeting, and those it's a buzzword, right, that's out there. You hope that they're more accurate, that the numbers from the people who have, the people on the front lines, right, the advantage of participative budgeting is more accurate. There's a perception of fairness, arbitrary, right? It depends on how the other person sees it. Like Nick Bollettieri would say, how you see it. And again, so for all the all the levels of management or the frontline people involved in saying, well, what can we accomplish, and sketching out painting the goals, right? That's never a bad thing. Produce a budget that's fair, achievable. Okay, an unreliable budget can be, just unrealistic expectations from anyone, from analyst groups or economists, whoever it might be. Okay, obviously that can be that could be a problem. Say, well, we didn't hit our numbers, and certainly publicizing that you're going to accomplish something and not is just a horrific outcome when that happens, especially if you're a publicly traded company. And then people can cut corners and try to game the budget and say, well, we're going to hit our numbers by September, so we'll take it easy. That kind. But again, and also, and see the top point here, the time and energy and the resources involved in creating these budgets. That could be another issue, and what are we getting out of that plan, kind of a thing. The folks I work with, now I sit down and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But once we sort of, and I've developed, I don't say budgets, but I've developed, forecasts of what our plans are as a group, as a firm. And we're in the process of knocking those goals down. But it's also, I'm not communicating that to hundreds of people. I'm communicating that to maybe less than 10 people. Okay, so but again, it works for what we do. But we do have, it's not just there's people that we've worked with in the past who have been in charge of this firm that I work for now, who had no projective abilities whatsoever, ability to estimate anything whatsoever, and just were operating day to day. And there's still people around like that now, amazingly enough. So there's the top management, there's there's the managers, so sort of middle management, and then there's the departmental. Now we don't have anything remotely close to this. We just have the top people, and I'm probably considered in this group, right? Just advising the top people. We don't have this middle here. And these are basically the people we're investing in. So, okay, you have very specific departmental managers. Time Warner. Again, I've been in sort of the corporate centers of New York City and Midtown. You can get very insulated in those very comfortable high rises, right? With the chocolate chip cookies and the coffee and the perfect climate in these buildings, and you could, you're living in a world unto your own, and as long as we produce something that appears interesting and appealing, and people will believe it, we did our job, as opposed to really looking at the investment, really looking at what the outcomes can be from a data-based or reality-based perspective. Again, the CEO, we won't overpromise, we will deliver. That's all corporate speak is what that is. Attainable goals is what you need. Okay. It says we're all going forward with our arms locked. Again, this is all it's all words. Or these are all words. You got to produce. There's got to be the capital. There's got to be the right idea. Then you got to be able to implement what you're doing. Okay, and that's far easier said than done. Big company, small company, whatever. The basics here. But long-range planning and budgeting, there's time involved, emphasis, and then the detail. Usually the budget's a year. and long-range planning might be 5 years. Again, you do that personally, you do that as a company. Okay, you do all that. And the essentials of effective budgeting don't include, and I was going to go to the top one, right? I was going to say A, so top-down budgeting. Okay. It includes management's acceptance. It includes research analysis. It includes sound organizational, but it doesn't have to be top-down. It could be bottom-up, and that might be better. The master budget is a set of interrelated budgets. It constitutes a plan of action for a specified time period. It contains 2 classes of budgets, operating and financial. We always care about capital expenditures. We always care about cash. I mean, these are the key things. I mean, like I said, this is from the management accounting sort of part of that accounting book, but it applies. It's microeconomics is what this is. But in financial analysis, we care about the cash position. We care about capital. Those are the huge points of study if you're analyzing companies. If you're trying to the stock analysts, the securities analysts out there, debt or equity, right? Focus on the needs to fund the operations and capital expenditures. And again, these fabulous flow diagrams here. There's a sales budget, there's a production budget, and then you break it down to the 3 operating budgets: overhead, direct labor, and direct material. Then there's selling administrative, and then budget income statement. And this diagram here, we're going to have Excel models that illustrate all of this. All of this will be worked. So this is, we're going to be working on this chapter well to the spring break, if not beyond. So this list of terms to complete the sentences below. It says shows a potential for sales for the industry and the company's expected. That's a sales forecast, is what that is. Sales for the industry and the company's share of those. Basis for preparation of budgeted statements, right? Obviously, that's going to be the operating budgets. I just mentioned those. Okay. Interrelated budgets. These are called the master budgets. Plan of action for a specified time period. The long-term goals, long-range planning, strategies to achieve the goals, policies. Participative budgeting is the lower level managers involved, and they feel listened to. And then certainly this last one is going to be the financial budget. Okay, that's the cash resources to fund expected operations and planned capital expenditures. So that's all that's in the we have that in Excel. That's on the textbook someplace. Now we're going to start breaking the operating budget up into pieces. Sales budget's the first piece. Okay, it's the first budget prepared. It's derived from the sales forecast. It's the best estimates of sales revenues for the budgeted period. Every other budget depends on the sales budget, and it's prepared by multiplying expected unit sales volume for each product times the anticipated selling price. And if you're a Samsung, where you're making phones and TVs and gas ranges, this is quite a task. We're showing you, an example of this, but this has to be done. This is every single product that you have for a manufacturer, and with Walmart too. Like a Walmart or a Target or a Costco, what are they selling? So you need an army of accounting type people to get through this. It's not going to be 1 or 2 lines. Okay, we're showing you how this happens in a textbook, but when you really sit down at a hospital, we have a 150-page model for the hospital that we're going to be building overseas pretty soon. Inpatient, outpatient, X-rays, this and this procedure, that procedure, lab tests. Okay, it's all those kinds of things. So there's 3,000 units in the first quarter, 500 unit increments for each following quarter. Okay, so so in terms of units, you start with units. 3,000, 3,500, 4,000, 4,500, and then here, this is all the per unit selling prices, which are here, and these are consistent. You're going to do a product or multiply them together. So $60 times 3,000 units is 108,000, and similar everything else here. And this is a combination of all the units you're selling, and we made this easy where we had the unit selling price didn't change for the year, but even this can change. So getting this year-end number, we made it easy where you can just take all the units times 60, but if the quarterly prices change, you got to, it's going to make the computation a little more complicated. And you always want to put the company name, and this is a spreadsheet, right? Put the company name, what the budget is, the year end, all that. This must be produced to meet anticipated sales, derived from sales budgets plus the desired change in ending fixed finished goods, required production units formula. And now I don't have any of these memorized, these equations, but this is the production formula. Excuse me. So budgeted sales units. Now this is based again units, not dollars. What you want to end with, what in terms of inventory, how many Samsung phones you want in December, and then what are you starting with versus what you need to make. So what you start with plus what you produce equals what you end with and what your budgeted sales are. Okay. That we're going to run across a formula like this a couple times in the chapter. And again, the next model here, this is the production budget, a little more complicated. The unit sales, desired finished ending goods, add those up, and then subtract what you start with. So this is an Excel version of that formula. Okay. And it says the company believes it can meet future sales needs with an ending inventory of 20% of next quarter's sales. So what do you have here? It's got to be 0.2. I have this worked out. It's 20% next quarter. I have this worked out in Excel. So it would be, for B, it would be 5,000 units times 20%. Oh, yeah, that's for 2013 because we're still in 2012. So they're trying to project ahead a bit. And then C would be the first quarter unit sales. Yeah. So 20% times 3,500 is 700. 20% times 4,000 is 800. 20% by 4,500 is 900. And then we did 20% of, we could predicting 5,000 units here. And that's how you get the 1,000. So yeah, it's just 20% of the next. So yeah, your ending inventory here are all those 20% is 20%. But again, we'll work this out on Excel. This will do it the Excel. We'll work that in Excel. So that's ending is 20%. And for this other 20, I would go to the Excel for that. And actually, if you guys don't mind, because I want to get this right for you guys. Here we go. Yeah, that's 20% of the next quarter sales. This is 500 more plus that because we say we're estimating it's going to be 5,000. I think we saw that someplace, right? Whoops. Oh, I did that. Okay, 37,600, 43, 55, good, 41, good. Yeah, so we're here with this. And what else? Actually, this is my Excel here that I worked it out already. So this 3,000, 3,500, this is all just from here. Okay, that just came down. I could equal it or just start with and just add 500 every time. I just basically could do that. Yeah, the ending is 20% of the next quarter sales, total hard units, and then beginning is what are we saying for next quarters, first quarter? Yeah, this is just 20. This is just 20% left, is what this is. Yep, 20% left. Boom, boom. Yeah, there's the total required, which are there. Okay. Okay, so next quarter sales were okay. First quarter were okay. And then, yeah, so for the beginning finish, right, it'd be 20% of estimated first quarter sales units. Actually, what I should do with this thing, I could put something here. Yeah, this is next quarter, right, is what this is. I like that. Next quarter sales. Okay, we did that. And this is okay. So we put these little notes in, myself included, to clarify what we're talking about here. So again, when you're explaining it, when I'm explaining it, okay, we're okay with this. And this used 20 estimated first quarter sales units. Yeah. Okay. Again, every iteration through your work, it's gonna seem a little clearer. We hope, at how we do things. And now this is direct materials budget. Shows the quantity and cost of direct materials to be purchased. Again, ending, beginning, production, and then what you purchased. So you're producing, and what you're ending with is equal to what you started with and what you purchased. And again, you can go berserk trying to memorize all this stuff, but you use it as you need it, right? Budgeted cost of direct materials to be purchased, required units of direct materials times anticipated cost per unit. And these are just some notes. There could be inadequate inventories from temporary shutdowns of production. So it maintains ending inventory of raw materials equal to 10% of the next quarter's requirements. So this says kitchen mate. I don't know. My mixer's kitchen aid, the blender's kitchen aid. So and maybe these guys are just grabbing something from that. It could be, right? And assuming directing end materials is 1,020. Prepare. Okay. This is an example. Yeah. This is prepared direct materials budget. So that's what we do. So 1 unit of whatever this is, 1 unit of kitchen equipment is 2 pounds of raw materials, and the cost per pound is $4. So it'll be $8 with that. Okay. So how do we get the 31? Well, that's a part of what you did. Okay, so you have two pounds of raw material per unit, and you're buying or you're predicting 31, 36, all that. So the pounds needed for production, yeah, actually these that's 31, 36. Yeah, that comes from here. So in other words, this is your final product, 31 to 46, which is this top line here. And then you need 2 units of steel or 2 units of electrical components or whatever it might be. Okay, so you multiply that. So in other words, you're buying, let's just say you're just the metals to make up the mixer. All right, you're getting 2 pounds per unit, so you need 6,200 up to 9,200, and then you have an ending number, which is about 10%. It says of next quarter's production. So if this is next quarter, 10% of the 7,200 is 720. And then you just look at this. I think you just go forward another 1,000 pounds right here, and then it's 10% times 10,020, which gives you 1,020, which is here. So all the materials required, you're adding up the production numbers and what you want to end up with. And then you had a beginning part here, which was this. And these were 10% of that quarter's production. All right, and you're going to subtract those to get the 6,300. And then the cost per unit, as we just looked in the notes here, it says $4 per unit, which is right there, which is how you get the total cost of materials, and you add them all up to get $124,800. Okay, and now this is, again, we're better served. We're better served hitting this particular problem in Excel, but we'll just go over how this all works. These guys are preparing a master budget. There's relevant data pertaining to the sales, production, and direct materials budgeted as follows. The sales are anticipated to be 1.2 million, and the quarterly sales are 20%, 20, as broken down into percentages that add up to 100. You're going to take that 1.2 million, break it up, a quarter, a fifth, and then 30%. The sale price is 50 per unit for the first 3 quarters, and then it changes to 55 in the 4th quarter. Sales in the 1st quarter are expected to be 10% higher than the budget sales for the 1st quarter of 2012. Okay, so we're linking on to the next year. Management wants to maintain finished goods at 25% of next quarter's budgeted sales volume. And then each unit requires 3 pounds of raw materials at a cost of $5 per pound. And management desires to maintain raw materials inventories at 5% for the next quarter's production requirements, and assume the production requirements for the 1st quarter of 2013 are 810,000 pounds. Okay, so we have this worked out. So those are sales. Okay, let's do. Yeah, this is the Soriano problem. I think I think they're Yankee fans, because this guy was a big player for them, Soriano, 20 years ago. So I think that's where that started. So there's the expected unit sales. So how are we doing this? This is, yeah. So we broke that up. That 1.2 million units, we broke that up into pieces, and you're selling it for $50 a unit. Did we have that here? Okay, this is production. Yeah, this is the production budget. So we jump right. So we developed all of this. We developed these top lines, and then we brought down here. You brought those down, right? This thing, the 300,000, those were all, you brought those down. This part says desired goods. Yeah. So this is, this thing, totally just add them up. This is from previous model. The beginning is 25%. And then the first quarter sales, yeah, 10% more. We use the 2013 estimates is what we did. Okay. So we redolled this up with these. Now it bothers me, but we can't put the numbers in here. It's not let. Yeah, you have to be in the whole screen to do it. So here, let me do this. Okay. I took a picture of my Excel. And again, folks, don't be afraid to use your technology. Okay. Yeah, the 240 and all that, that's all from the previous model, from the sales budget. And the rest of this all matches up. Yeah, 255. Yeah. 300, 360. Okay. 240. Yeah, so this was 10%. This one here, this is, yeah, no, this is a quarter. Yeah, this is 25% of this, 75, 25% of this is 90,000, 25% of that is 75. Yeah. So we're all okay with that. That's A. Then you use then you estimate a 10% change in sales for 2013. You use that to get the 66,000. And then the ending is just 25% of the top line. So this is, this 60,000 here, this is 25% of this. This is 25% of that. This is a quarter of that, and this is a quarter of that. Okay. In Excel, it'll be better. But these are the units that you produce. You subtract out what you started with. You have the expected sales, what you decide to finish with, what's required, what you started with, and then what you're making. Okay. This is, what is this? This is production. Yeah, this is the direct material budget. What's being produced is 255. So you pull that off of the previous model. Then it's 3 units per final unit, three units per final unit. All right. Needed for production. What you're ending with, 5% of all those numbers. Okay. Is what you're ending with. This is what's required, which is here. And then you subtract out your beginning piece, which is 5% from the what's needed for production, and then you have total direct materials added in there at the end. And then you're using a 2013 first quarter estimate is what you're using. Okay, so this was production budget, which was here. Here's direct materials, and this is 3 units. This is going to be 5%, right, of the next thing. Okay, so you're subtracting out beginning from what's required. 3 million, whatever, all these, right? This is just the product of the purchase times the cost per pound, and you're there. Okay. But again, we're going to work this out in, we're going to work this out in Excel. This is just explaining sort of how everything sort of happens there. Okay. That's the material. So yeah, so we have, that'll be coming. This is the labor budget. And again, the whole point of these slides are just to get us rolling along. What's produced, time per unit, cost per hour, total direct labor costs. It's a product. Quantity of hours and cost of direct labor, necessary to meet production requirements, critical to maintain the labor force, expected production. But again, so you have a total direct labor cost formula, and again, we'll work that out in Excel. Back to Hayes now. We're looking at the labor budget, 2 hours per unit, how many units being produced, how many hours, then the cost per hour, multiply that by the required direct labor hours, and then you have 62,000, 92,000, you have all that. All right, this shows the expected manufacturer overhead cost for budget period, fixed and variable cost overhead costs. Okay. Yeah, so now we're working on the manufacturing overhead budget. So now for each of these categories, indirect materials, indirect labor, maintenance, utilities, then you have the direct hours to produce the certain units. Okay. Budgeted indirect labor. So you can take the hours times the cost and then you're going to prepare that budget, which is here. So so you break these all down in terms of how many hours do you need in each quarter times all the costs. Same thing here. Actually, these are fixed, so these are just simply entries. Add these up, and then you have what your direct labor hours are, and then you divide this 246,000 by the 30,800, and it gives you $8 an hour for manufacturing, the overhead number. And that's, folks, that could be significant for some companies. That could be a big part of the bill. Believe me, I can from firsthand experience. Selling administrative budgets, projection of anticipated operating expenses, distinguishing fixed and variable costs, the expense rate per unit of sales or sales commissions, and now you have the freight out and you have commissions. Okay, so variable expenses per quarter based on the unit sales from the sales budget. Hayes expects sales in the first quarter to be 3,000 units, and the fixed expenses are based on assumed data. So now the next one is selling administrative budget, which is another similar to the overhead one. Sales commissions, the freight outs per unit. When we discussed the definitions of freight out, and who pays shipping, where and when, is it when the person receiving it, is the person shipping it? We've spoken about that in previous videos. Depreciation, because that's a non-cash expense, you can add that back usually. Okay. So now you have another, and again, we'll go through the detail. I'm not expecting that you guys understand how to generate these budgets just from us sitting here. You can see I kept going back to the Excel. Okay, so you have to go back. You need that needs to be taught in Excel, not just. It'll take forever to orate every single little maneuver without seeing it done and without seeing the math done. And my answer for this was going to be B. The sales budget is management's best estimate of sales revenue for the year. And all the other answers, again, for the multiple choice people out there, it's not, sales is not derived from the production budget. Okay, it's not, it's the other way around. Okay, it's not that it is a starting point for the master budget, and it's not only for credit sales either. So, and actually, as I said in class many times, what people will pay you to do is this stuff. This is a budgeted income statement. Important end of product or end product of the operating budgets, expected profitability of operations, basis for evaluating company's performance. It's prepared from sales, materials, labor, overhead. So it's prepared from these 5 operating budgets. Okay. And now this just takes all of our unit costs that we computed the $8. We computed all these in previous slides, and it gets them all together. So this is the cost of materials, labor, overhead, the cost of one kitchen mixer or something, right? The cost of goods sold, that's how to determine the total unit cost of again, this is one unit or one type of petroleum or one type of natural gas, And this is done across the spectrum of all. Every single product has to have this. So think of a company that sells a lot of varied products. Okay. So the cost of goods sold is that $44 times what you're going to be selling that first quarter, and what the cost of goods sold is going to be. Okay, you can compute gross profit from that, and then you have this thing budgeted out, the 180 for the year ending December 2012. You can compute income from operations, then you have an interest expense, then you have a tax expense, and you can get down to your earnings. And you have to figure out, your interest expenses, your tax expenses. You have to, from the whatever your bank or your state or whatever is going to help you get those numbers. Each of the following budgets is used when preparing the budget income statement, except the capital, because that's not, the capital expenditure budget is important, but it's certainly not in the income. It's not in the income statement, that's for sure. And we're going back to Soriano one more time, and again using this example. Half hour of direct labor per unit. Labor costs are $15 an hour. Overhead is $25 per direct labor hour. The budget selling expenses for 2012 are $12 million. And you want to compute budget total units cost and prepare the budget income statement. And there it is, and what that looks like. But again, we're going to work through this specifically, right? Your sales, revenue, cost of goods. Right, how you got to the 42 million, selling expenses, right? How to get to gross profit, okay? And we're going to get to all of this in the Excel models. The cash budget now is the next thing. Shows anticipated cash flows. Considered to be the most important output in preparing the financial budgets. Contains a couple sections: cash receipts, cash disbursements, financing, the beginning ending cash balances. And again, very important for analyzing a company. And even though this is just all, there's no numbers in this, but the form of this, the beginning cash balance, the cash receipts added, total cash available, less disbursements, excess or deficiency of available cash. If there's any kind of financing, and then what your ending cash balance is, very important stuff in private transactions, okay? Expected receipts from the principal source of revenue, expected interest and dividend receipts, proceeds from planned sales of investments, planned assets, capital stock, expected cash payments for direct materials and labor, taxes, dividends, planned assets. There's a financing section for borrowings and repayments of borrowed funds, plus the interest that's involved in that. These things have to be done in sequence and in the appropriate order. The ending cash balance of one period is the beginning cash balance of the next one. There's data obtained from other budgets and from management and prepared for the year on a monthly basis. Cash budget contributes to more effective cash management, shows managers the need for additional finance before that the need actually arises, indicates when excess cash is going to be available. And again, so this is the financial budget for Hayes. Again, we work this all out in Excel. What's collected and when, what's collected in the following quarter, what's a receivable, the short-term investments, right? If there's something that's going to be sold, you have some sort of asset you're selling in a particular quarter, you want to maintain a balance of 15,000, your starting cash balance. So all these notes, you need all these notes to make this model. Direct materials, when they're paid, what they're purchased in what period, paid in the next, right? That kind of a thing. So when does that cash go out the door? Labor, it's paid when it's incurred. Okay. Selling, manufacturing overhead, selling, administrative, all items except depreciation are paid in the quarter incurred. And management plans to purchase a truck. So you're purchasing an asset, and how you're going to handle that transaction. They make quarterly payments of estimated taxes. Loans are repaid in the earliest quarter, in which there's enough cash to pay it off. And it says prepare schedule of collections from customers. Yeah. So again, we're going to have to go back into Excel to do all of this. But in terms of receivables, when the company makes a sale, it collects maybe a little this quarter and a little the next quarter, and we'll go through what gets added and all those kinds of things, and how to schedule your collections from your customers. Like I said, we need Excel to do that. Okay, so I'm just giving you the overall picture of this, but we need to do that in Excel. And same thing for this. This is a collection from customers. This is paying for direct materials. How you're staggering those payments is what that is. And again, this will be worked out for us in Excel. And there you go. And there's your final product here. What the beginning cash balance is, if there's a borrowing, if there's a repayment, interest is paid. Okay, those kinds of things. Okay. Folks, stand by for a second. Stand by for a second.